Stream is going up. And we're on green across the board for the time being. Hopefully that sticks around. Let's see. Can you guys hear this?
To North Korea, where the country is marking its 70th anniversary.
Can.
All right, perfect. Hopefully those on the other end are able to hear that. Of course, it's only been one.
Yeah, I just pulled up the feed.
Yep.
There we go. Just loaded up.
Yeah, let's get some music going.
All right.
Wait, can you guys hear the music?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, I mean, awesome.
All right, give me just
I got
a
this all
second.
set up nicely.
Okay.
Oh, also, I did a cool little thing.
Yeah?
Yeah, if you're watching the stream, I just transitioned, and it's a little standby thing for whenever, you know, we have a chat open in case, you know, whenever we want to go off show stuff or whatever, pre-show, post-show.
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh! Yeah, there we go. I see it now. Sorry,
Yeah.
it took a second to load.
Oh, it's all cool.
That's dope. I like that.
All
Good
right,
job,
it's
man.
going back. I figured it'd be a decent thing to try.
Oh, and you updated the fucking overlay. Nice, man.
No, for some reason it had transitioned back to the old one. And I don't really know why. For the last stream that we did. Yeah, I did the whole fix to, you know, fix to it a little bit.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Try not to scream in.
Yeah, try not to. Gotta back up a little bit, calm myself down.
Woo! Alright. This will be the first podcast we're doing on my new setup.
Oh yeah. Wait, really? The whole new
Yeah.
battle station and everything? The first time?
Not the whole battle station, because I'm mobile right now. But I am on a
Mobile battle
fucking
station.
kick-ass phone. I told you I bought that Razer phone, right?
Mm-hmm. Dude, you've been
dude.
sharing that picture with everybody.
Oh my god, you don't understand, dude. I send Razer tribute pics.
Oh my god.
Damn it, political. I love
Only
that.
a few people are gonna get that one, but it's okay. Alright, so you've got the show notes well, the show playlist up, I assume?
Oh yeah, it's there. I mean, if you could see it in the Discord app and, you know.
We've only got one really long clip this week, but it's a clip of Michael Avenatti
Getting...
That's gonna be fun to watch.
Like it's pretty good. Here, I'm gonna adjust my trigger volume.
Alright.
Trigger volume.
Yeah, I just felt like I had to like talk loudly. So let me just get this where I want it. Okay, how about right there? That might be pretty good.
Sounds good to me.
And I'm not like clipping off words or anything, right?
Nope. Barely
Perfect.
going into the red, just nice and good.
Okay.
Unless there's people on the other side who can hear and give us a good tell us what's up.
I don't know if we have many people. I think we got 5 viewers right now. Yeah, okay. Let's, we should probably think about getting started with this, actually.
Alright.
Alright.
All right. Let's all quiet.
We're on episode 16?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 16.
Damn.
16, man. Damn.
God damn.
Where does the time go?
I know, right?
Yep. All right, here comes our music. Howdy again there, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to the Knead To Know podcast on this lovely September the 16th, a Sunday, 2018. For episode 16, we've got Breadbox with us, of course.
Hey.
We've got Political over there on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Is that the gender spectrum?
Whatever spectrum you want it to be, man. Whatever spectrum you want. Alright.
Oh, man. It's been a long week, man.
It has. Long,
Although,
tiring.
you know,
Ugh.
it's been a slow political news week, I feel.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there.
But, you know, the world is still going crazy, so we got a lot of material.
Perfect for our material, man. So long as the world keeps going crazy, and we get to be, you know, doing this. Either that, or we're going to be a new medium at some point. Who knows? That's a crazy world.
You guys remember last week when we were talking about that North Korea parade?
Yes, I do, actually.
We were hoping to see whether or not they were going to have some ICBMs roll out in that parade.
Yeah. Yeah, we were worried about... they said that they weren't, right?
Right, so it's like everyone in the media was waiting with bated breath to see whether or not North Korea was actually going to roll out these ICBMs like they have in the past as kind of a kabuki theater indirect threat to the U.S. But this year it looks like they've kind of taken a drastic turn. We get a clip for that as well.
All right, let's go straight on into it then. Why not?
To North Korea, where the country is marking its 70th anniversary with a show of power.
A massive military parade held in Pyongyang, but something was missing. ABC's Martha Raddatz is in the North Korean capital with more.
It is a massive spectacle. Precision marching bands, fireworks, balloons, and planes forming a 70 in the sky. The guest of honor, Kim Jong-un, who is just above us in the square named after his grandfather, today presiding over an adoring crowd and an incredible display of North Korea's military.
All parts of the North Korean military are passing by today. There are sailors, pilots, tankers, and soldiers goose-stepping in unison. You can feel the ground shake.
They actually got journalists there.
What was included in today's parade that got everyone's attention? It was what was left out. There were tanks and artillery, but no display of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Last February, before the Singapore summit, ICBMs, the kind believed capable of reaching the U.S. with a nuclear warhead, were rolled proudly past Kim. Today, nothing even remotely threatening to the U.S. mainland. Despite the on and off negotiations and the lack of evidence of any effort to denuclearize, Kim was turning down the heat. Although there was one gesture that stood out, Kim joining hands with the Chinese representative, who's helped the U.S. needs to keep pressure on the North's supreme leader.
There will be more extravagant celebrations here in North Korea in the coming days, but today's parade diplomacy made the message very clear.
President Xi.
The ground shaking behind her. Martha Raddatz reporting in from Pyongyang. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, this guy that they sent, he wasn't the one that was invited. It was actually the Chinese president that was invited, and everyone was kind of wondering whether or not it would be kind of a bit of a snub. And if you look at the way that they were holding hands, like basically Kim Jong-un like snatched dude's hand and held it up, and the other guy's just kind of standing.
That is exactly what it looked like.
I mean,
it's pretty funny.
I don't know. It's probably rare that he's on the same level as other leaders. I mean, you never know.
know,
He's in
right?
the same room like that. I'm just being facetious.
Kim might have taken some liberties, but you never know. I mean, 90% of their trade goes through China, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I know.
So it's. I mean, their relationship is pretty big. So I figured that we'd take one last look at this parade because they have some interesting things to say about it, and it's kind of. I mean, it's the 70th anniversary of of North Korea. I thought since we got to look at ABC, we'd take a look at CBS.
70th anniversary of North Korea. God, I just love that.
Well, the North Korean peninsula. Well, I can't even talk. The Korean peninsula was set up the way it was as a result of the Korean War.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. I'm just saying the phrasing you used. Never mind. Let's just get into this. Let's move on.
Isaac Stonefish is a CBSN contributor and a senior fellow at the Asia Society's Center on U.S.-China Relations, and he joins me now. Isaac, always good to have you. North Korea's in the past has featured ballistic missiles, these very sort of large, elaborate. I think it's fair to call them spectacles, right?
Right.
Why were they excluded, though, notably this year?
Really seems like Kim Jong-un is trying to send a message to Trump that, hey, North Korea as a country is trying to focus on economic prosperity, and we're ready to talk.
And so at this point, the rest of the world is watching this thinking, what is the message being sent there?
Right, and it really seems like the message is, all right, we spent a lot of time over the last couple of years testing weapons, testing nuclear weapons, making a lot of really aggressive, outrageous statements, and now, at least publicly, the policy that we seem to be taking moving forward is we want dialogue, we want relaxation of sanctions, and we want to start being more of a regular nation, start getting into the fabric of the global community.
And this is a way for them to display that, in fact, it's not just words, that there is an actual commitment, at least with this public display or non-display of these particular weapons. What about China now? Where does China stand? Where you have this kind of softening, right, between the U.S. and North Korea. China is looking on and thinking what at this particular moment?
So China sent a very high-ranking official to go attend the parade. Originally, it was thought that China's leader Xi Jinping would go. For some reason, he is not attending. But it seems like what North Korea is doing, what it's been trying to do for a long time, is figure out a way to be less reliant on China. So roughly 90% of North Korea's trade goes through China. And I think a lot of North Korean officials and probably some regular North Koreans are afraid that by being overly dependent on China, they could really risk losing their independence, and that China is potentially a larger threat to them than the United States.
So something that was different this year as well, as we noted, is this emphasis on North Korea's economic growth. I mean, that's not necessarily something that we have seen emphasized in the past. So why this shift?
So Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, was really big on his military-first policy. And then when Kim Jong-un took power in 2011, he has emphasized economic growth along with military strength. And now, we did still see a lot of goose-stepping soldiers and a lot of weapons being paraded and a lot of slogans that were pretty aggressive towards Americans. But he's also seemingly trying to really push an economic message as well. That said, North Korea is a very, very mercurial state. It's very possible that we could be back here in a week talking about North Korea's latest missile launch. But for now, at this moment right now, it does seem to be much more a message of peace.
I know that's always the caveat at this particular moment, right? Well, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un did not address people during this. Is that unusual, and what should we take away from that?
So North Korean leaders have had different relationships with the population. Kim Il-sung, the founding leader, was much more of a retail politician, kissing babies, handshakes. Kim Jong-il, his father, who died in 2011, was almost never heard or seen in public. He was a very, very private, reclusive man. Kim Jong-un has been much more like his grandfather. That said, there are times when he doesn't appear, and it's really hard to know if these are anything significant or maybe he had a sore throat.
Yeah,
it's just really hard to say.
Right. So then bottom line it for us. You've got this gesture on the part of the North Korean leader to not display these ballistic missiles. You have the dialogue continuing to be favorable, or at least the rhetoric, I should say, from President Trump towards Chairman Kim. Are there tensions that still persist here? What's the reality of the picture where you have sort of this very nice rhetoric, but then what's happening at a policy level here, a substantive level?
So I think on the one hand, tensions do persist, and at the policy level, you have a massive gap between what the U.S. wants and what the North Koreans want. On the other hand, on the leaders level, you have a rare, massive amount of trust between the two sides. I think Kim Jong-un probably gets how beleaguered Trump is feeling, how almost paranoid he's feeling, and how people on all sides are seeming to try to take him down, and yet Kim Jong-un is saying, listen, I trust you.
Because he's paying attention to all that, right? Kim Jong-un is paying attention to all that?
It really seems to be, or at least his people here are paying attention. And the message that the North Koreans seem to be trying to send to Trump is, you can trust us too. So on the working level, there's a lot of really important details that would be very difficult to ever work out. But on the presidential level, we have this rare window, and probably something's going to come of it.
All right. We will continue to watch it closely. Isaac Stonefish, thanks so much.
Thanks.
You know, that's the first time I've seen him, but I really like his analysis. He's a pretty smart cookie.
That was a pretty extremely spot on to describe everything that's going on.
Which is one of the reasons why I grabbed the clip. I figured what we could do is take a look at the parade and then go in depth. So that's pretty much what's going on with North Korea right now. There's some talks about, I couldn't find a good enough clip for this, but just so that we cover it while we're here, there are talks going on for a second summit.
Talks going on.
Did you know?
Yeah, I knew that.
Did you know?
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
So Kim Jong-un is inviting President Trump back to another summit. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that and see if something comes of it. Maybe that'll they'll make an announcement about that here pretty soon, and we can cover that in next week's show. But we'll keep our audience abreast of the information that they need to be abreast of. Okay.
Some chick did just say rhetoric to answer the question posed in the chat.
Right. Rhetoric.
Yeah, we gotta remember to pay attention to that thing, you know?
Oh, I know. Okay, so we're kind of switching gears now. We're getting out of the Korean Peninsula, and let's take a look back over at Iran. They're not doing so hot. They're really starting to feel the pain.
Iran feeling the pain, coming right up.
This border crossing has been busier than usual this year, especially since Washington pulled out of its nuclear deal with Iran and reimposed economic sanctions. The Iranian rial has hit a record low. While it took 60,000 rials to buy $1 in the black market a few months ago, it now takes 140,000 rials. So Afghans, like this family who worked in Iran and sent money home in dollars, saw the value of their wages and savings plummet.
We had no choice but to return. We went to Iran because of our economic condition. We had a business there, but we lost 23 million Iranian rials. As the Iranian currency lost its value, we faced trouble, so much so that we had no money to return, but we were deported.
With inflation sky high and wages dropping, Afghans in Iran are looking for options. Many don't want to return home because of the worsening security situation. Instead, they're slipping across the border on their way to more stable and prosperous areas. But some get caught and sent back to Afghanistan. Most of the deportees are young men who are arrested at the border of Iran and Turkey as they're trying to make their way to Europe. Some have been living in Iran as undocumented refugees for years, while others recently arrived to find work.
I went to Iran 8 months ago to work. The Iranians captured me and took me to a military base. They took money to buy bus tickets. They then shifted us to the Kaka Safed area. We starved there. We had no meals. Everyone complained of the lack of food.
More than 500,000 undocumented Afghans have returned from Iran this year, many of them by force. They say they received some help, but not enough.
We pay
$200 or more as transportation costs to legal refugees. The International Organization for Migration pays transportation costs to undocumented returnees who are poor, women with no men, children, or the disabled.
Aid agencies acknowledge that they don't have the resources to help everyone, so many fall through the cracks. Aisha Tanzim, VOA News, Islam Qala at the border of Iran and Afghanistan.
Whoa.
So we've been covering Iran for, well, since the beginning of our show. Like, it was our first big story was the Iran deal.
Yeah.
And ever since that, we've been tracking Iran and seeing what's going on. And I would have to say, just to put it out there, that we kind of expected this. Like, we kind of expected their economy to take a tumble. I don't think any of us predicted that they would have migrants, though. But we all knew that they were going to start having their currency devalued.
Yeah, that migrant thing, though, that, I don't know, that's something that I kind of feel like we got to look into as in regards to a pattern of human behavior perspective, I guess. That's...
As far as, like, when people move from one economic zone to the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little troubling. I honestly feel that what happens is these countries put in policies that don't work, and then their people suffer, and then their people leave instead of trying to change their country. It's kind of the way that the system has gone now because travel is so accessible, I think, personally. But, you know, I'm saying that from a first world perspective where you can hop on a bus and get to the other side of the city, so... you know, why don't we listen to this this Iranian nuclear official tell us everything that we already know about the deal and explain to us why he wants it to succeed and how he's afraid for it not.
Wait, succeed? But I thought we already canceled it.
You know,
or wait, no, we just backed out of it.
Well, here's the thing: without us, the deal collapses.
Oh yeah, right, because we got all the money.
If we have to go back and we stop the nuclear, I mean, we withdraw from the nuclear deal, we certainly do not go back to where we were before. We will be standing on a much, much higher position. I think he is on the loser's side, but of course, because he's pursuing the logic of power, he thinks that he can, you know, continue for some time. But certainly, I don't think he will benefit from this withdrawal. Certainly not.
Wasn't that one of the leaders that John Kerry met with?
I believe so. Yeah, that's the nuclear minister, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and just kind of feeding some lies. You know, we're just gonna wait this out.
Oh, well, you know, everything is going to be fine, and if we decide to withdraw from the deal that we have been desperately trying to salvage, then we'll be at a better bargaining position anyway, so we just should.
Likely, we'll make a decision after the midterm elections in the United States, but that's neither here or there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get out of Iran, because there's nothing really going on there other than, you know...
Well, somebody's got to get out of Iran.
Right. France 24 did a report on Idlib that I thought would be kind of great for us to just kind of get like a status update from Syria.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing a whole lot of stuff about Idlib.
Oh yeah.
But no, pretty quick. I feel like he had something more to say.
Oh no. It's a short clip. We'll run right through it.
Here in Idlib province, hundreds of civilians are en route to refugee camps at the Syrian-Turkish border.
We have been displaced from southern Idlib province, which has been the target of continuous strikes. This is what forced us to move from the south to the camp in Atme.
Over the last week, regime and Russian aircraft have stepped up their bombing campaign on the south of Idlib. After the strikes, a major ground offensive is expected to begin. the final push by President Bashar al-Assad's forces to retake the last major rebel-held stronghold in the country. 3 million civilians live within Idlib province, many of them having already fled from elsewhere in Syria.
We have been displaced for 8 years, and as soon as we settle somewhere, the planes come in.
Many of the Syrians in these camps come from Aleppo, Ghouta or Daraa, former rebel areas now conquered by the regime. After they fell to Assad, civilians and soldiers were allowed to leave for Idlib, but this time around no evacuation deal has been offered. Talks to avoid the expected assault on Idlib province broke down on Friday. Iran, Russia and Turkey were unable to reach an agreement, and a diplomatic solution now looks to be off the cards. More than 350,000 people have been killed over the 7 years since the civil war began.
This is what MSM calls the axis of evil right there.
Oh, gosh. You mean the 3 people sitting at that table?
Yeah, Putin and the, what's his name? The Ayatollah. And Ayatollah Khamenei. And then I forget, was that Assad with him as well? No, that was Erdogan. Which is interesting that Erdogan is in a meeting with Putin.
Well, it's Turkey. So, I mean, if you don't bring Turkey to the meeting.
They're NATO. That's the problem here. They're a NATO country.
Well then, what does that mean?
That means we just sit and wait and see what Turkey does. They've been talking about buying S-400 missile systems, and there's some argument that the DoD is putting up about how if they buy those missile systems, then they're compromising the American defense technologies that they've already purchased. So
you can't have the best of both worlds.
Apparently, you got to pick Windows or Mac. It's just a thing. There's no Linux in the military.
That gives me an idea, which we'll touch on that later.
That is fake news. There's definitely a lot of choice in the military, but it's like I said, you either pick America or Russia as far as military, weapons manufacturers. There's others, but as far as like giant missile systems and stuff, that's we don't have a whole lot of competition, guys.
Yeah, no, that's true.
All right, so Secretary Pompeo is getting a little pressure from Congress over the problems that we're having in Yemen. You remember how we reported a few weeks now that there's kind of this slow narrative that's building about trying to accuse the U.S. of human rights violations in Yemen because we're backing a Saudi coalition to try to take back the country?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in Yemen. We've had the problem of, the Saudis not wanting to leave when they're prescribed to leave and all this stuff. But the latest interesting thing is that Mike Pompeo has taken hits over it.
The brutal war in Yemen continues. A Saudi-led coalition, supported by the U.S., has been fighting Houthi rebels backed by Iran since 2014, when the Houthis seized the capital. Civilians, particularly children, are bearing the brunt. Some U.S. lawmakers say they have seen enough.
Yet today in Yemen, our military continues to wage this interventionist war alongside Saudi Arabia, unauthorized by Congress. The time for crocodile tears and baseless platitudes is over. Enough is enough. The U.S. must end its support for Saudi Arabia and stop waging interventionist wars that increase destruction, death, and suffering around the world.
But Defense Secretary Jim Mattis
it's too bad we're under a state of emergency.
Airstrikes.
On Yemen, we support our partner Saudi Arabia's sovereign right to self-defense, and we recognize the end of the conflict requires a political solution. And both State Department and Department of Defense are working closely with the UN Special Envoy Martin Griffiths in that regard.
Mattis said Washington is working with Saudi Arabia to reduce the casualties from errant bombings, such as this one in early August that hit a bus full of children, killing at least 40. Congress has given Secretary of State Mike Pompeo until September 12th to certify that the coalition is taking steps to reduce civilian deaths. If he doesn't,
that kind of blows you away when you see the little graves.
The U.S. from refueling Saudi aircraft. State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert said Pompeo will do as Congress directed, but would not say what he will certify.
We will comply with the congressional briefing as is required, and we will be doing that in the near future.
Despite they really need their URL everywhere?
And with thousands of civilians displaced,
yes, they do.
The Trump administration, like its predecessor, is unlikely to end its military support for the Saudis, say analysts.
I don't think that
of course not.
There will be enough of an outcry to change course. I think the Trump administration is, given their alignment with Saudi Arabia, they're going to continue to back the Saudis.
Schmidt said pressure is not likely great enough to make the U.S. stop supporting Saudi-led airstrikes because the American public has been too distracted by so many other events to pay close attention to Yemen. Cindy Sain, VOA News, the State Department.
How about that?
I don't know, man.
Ooh.
I don't know, man.
I'd like to see that conflict wrap up, but realistically speaking, that's going to go on for the next couple of years, I feel. It's going to be Syria 2.0.
Oh, gosh.
Yep.
Because, I mean, it's just going to get to the point where the anti-government groups start fracturing, and then they're just going to be fighting their own citizens until the end of time. Okay, so we've talked about all these other countries that we've kind of hit on, before. Why don't we kind of switch gears here a little bit and talk about a country we've never actually discussed? I found this clip. I found this clip about Qatar, and it's a really good one.
That's awesome.
Well, the other thing is like I didn't know much about Qatar, so when I watched this clip before we got the show started, this was very informative to me. I learned I didn't understand what our relationship with Qatar was, and so now I kind of understand a bit better why that blockade that they put up, the trade embargo that all the countries around Qatar did last year, why that was such a significant event. Like I just didn't have the context for it. So I'm hoping that after we watch this clip together, you guys will have that context, and so will our audience, because it's a big deal, and I'm really shocked that I didn't know this before.
Well, surprisingly, one of the only pieces of context that I have on this is just to try to change the way that everybody pronounces the name of the country, from Qatar to Qatar. I don't know
Qatar.
Why. Yeah, that's apparently... I don't know. Everybody's got their own thing, tomato, tomato.
Yo, Qatar, you got the dog?
Welcome back.
If you're like many Americans, you might not know much about Qatar.
Oh, they screwed it up.
That's how to pronounce it.
Perched on the Arabian Peninsula, Qatar is one of the smallest countries in the world, just slightly larger than Connecticut. But oil has made Qatar one of the richest countries. It's that kind of money, plus its strategic location, that has Qatar
that kind of money that buys the World Cup
in a number of controversies involving the Trump administration and people linked to the president. For example, Qatar's UN mission in early 2018 dropped a whopping $6.5 million for an apartment in a building owned by President Donald Trump. Qatar already had owned $10 million worth of other apartments in Trump World Tower in New York. Qatar, for years, has allowed the U.S. military to keep its Central Command base in the country, where more than 10,000 American and allied troops staff the nerve center for U.S. military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, we've been running
Qatar
stuff from there for a long time.
Irritation to its neighbors, who also are U.S. allies. Those tensions boiled over in June 2017 when Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates imposed a diplomatic and travel blockade on the country. They were irked by Qatar's funding of the Al Jazeera media network and also by Qatar's support for militant Islamic groups. The blockade was triggered by a story in Qatar's state-run news agency that quoted the nation's leader lavishing praise on Hamas and calling Iran, quote, an Islamic power. Qatar claimed the story was fake and the result of a hack, but it outraged Qatar's fellow Sunni Muslim neighbors who view Shiite Muslim Iran as a regional menace. Qatar provided CNBC with a statement from Jazim Al-Thani, media attaché for the country, saying it's a force for stability in the region. Qatar has never supported terrorism or extremism in any form.
Oh, so
the UAE and Saudi Arabia aren't alone in their criticism of Qatar. President Trump has offered conflicting opinions about the country. In May 2017, Trump told Qatar's ruler, "Our relationship is extremely good." But less than a month later, Trump congratulated Saudi Arabia on blockading Qatar.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
Saudi Arabia.
However, just a week after that, Qatar announced a $12 billion deal to buy F-15 fighter jets from the United States. By April, Qatar's emir was being warmly welcomed by Trump at the White House.
It's a great honor to have the emir of Qatar with us. He's a friend of mine, knew him long before I entered the world of politics. He's a great gentleman. We have a gentleman on my right who buys a lot of equipment from us, a lot of purchases in the United States, and a lot of military, airplanes, missiles, lots of different things. We're making sure that terrorism funding is stopped in the countries that we are
music just suddenly
really
changed
related
there,
to,
just
I feel
change your
related.
feelings.
But those countries are stopping the funding of terrorism.
That's how they do it.
It includes UAE, it includes Saudi Arabia, it includes Qatar and others.
And Qatar has taken other steps to improve its image in the eyes of Washington. After the Saudi-led blockade, Qatar began paying a lobbying firm founded by former Trump campaign aide Barry Bennett $500,000 per month. In all, Qatar spent almost $5 million on the heels of the blockade by
careful with your
lobbyists, ad firms, and Washington, D.C. lawyers in an effort to repair its status with the U.S. That kind of spending has raised eyebrows. A former American ambassador to Saudi Arabia quipped, "It's going to allow a lot of Washington lobbyists to buy vacation homes this year." Qatar says the money it has spent in the United States pales in comparison to what has been spent by its neighbors to defame Qatar's reputation.
And they might actually be correct about that.
But Qatar did not reward attorney Michael Cohen, who, even while serving as Trump's personal lawyer, sought a payday from the country. In 2016, Cohen solicited a payment of at least $1 million from Qatar. The Washington Post reported it was all about access to and advice about the then incoming administration. Cohen was unsuccessful. Another Qatar-Trump connection involves Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor to the president. In March, NBC News reported that special counsel Robert Mueller's team is probing whether Kushner's business talks with foreigners during the presidential transition later affected administration policies towards Qatar. The Kushner companies reportedly had approached Qatar's sovereign wealth fund about possibly investing in the firm's financially troubled skyscraper at 666 Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. NBC News reported that Qatari officials considered turning over information about Kushner to Mueller, but they decided against it. In August, Brookfield Asset Management announced it had signed a 99-year lease for 666 Fifth Avenue, which will reduce or eliminate the financial squeeze facing the Kushner company. The Qatar Investment Authority, the country's sovereign wealth fund, is one of the biggest investors in Brookfield. So while the Trump administration's dealings with Russia have gotten
we got to talk about that building.
It's worth keeping an eye on Qatar
and I gotta find my
to see if
tinfoil.
it becomes a source of even more drama for Trump's presidency.
I wasn't in heavy on the research on that building, but that building has very interesting history. Very interesting history. But they're right. Kushner did get kind of a bit of a bailout from Qatar for the building, so it's kind of an interesting.
What was the point of all of that? What was it trying to tell us?
So the thing about Qatar is that they're trying to start this like minor narrative on the side.
Headaches.
They're trying to say that this is like miniature Russia, that Trump and his associates have too many ties to Qatar, and so you shouldn't trust Trump. That's what this whole segment is. It's, oh, well, Trump is a little bit too close to this terrorist-funded nation. Donald Trump is funding terrorism. And he's using this terrorist to put money in the pockets of his company and his son-in-law's company.
Oh, but don't worry about John McCain and the White Hats. He's dead
Shit,
now.
don't worry about John Kerry, over in Iran negotiating for the U.S. to stay in the deal.
Yeah, just telling them, hey, just wait it out. We got this covered. It'll be just a couple months. No.
Honestly, we almost included John Kerry in this week's show because he's really being looked at hard for Logan Act violations, but there wasn't anything bombshell or anything that's really come of it, so I figured it was, it's not important news.
We'll probably call this one the one where we talked about John Kerry a lot, but had no clips of him.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta say this. I really didn't understand that we had like a military headquarters in Qatar. I didn't get that. But now knowing the geographical location of the country, it makes sense.
Yeah, if you look at a map, bro, tell people that all the time. Go look at a map, look it around, scroll around and look at all these countries.
Yep. Oh, people have terrible geography skills, my friend.
Yep.
He's like, I'm aware. I'm on a podcast with one of those people.
No, I'm just bored at work and I only have access to the maps, like Google Maps, so I scroll around a lot.
Oh, that's funny.
Done that before. Virtual tour through Hong Kong, yeah.
I've never done that. I should probably give that a shot.
It's not bad.
So, we kind of spent a while in the Middle East, and I know we kind of already hit Asia a little bit, but we got to go back to the South China Sea because I found an interesting piece on Duterte. You know Duterte, the guy that nobody's name, or the guy whose name nobody can pronounce. Guy that
Duder.
Yeah. The drug addict hit squads.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
So he's kind of hurt. Yeah, he's just a very eccentric character. Says some crazy things. People try to compare him to Trump, but guy's a madman. So we're gonna take a look at this, and I think he tried to take a page out of Putin's book and failed.
Oh, this I gotta see.
What was a widely anticipated media conference ended up becoming one of the most jarring interviews ever held by President Rodrigo Duterte. For most of the 1 hour and a half long interview, Duterte vented his anger on the Philippine military, exposing the strained relationship between soldiers and their commander-in-chief.
Umpisahan na ninyo ngayon.
Start it now. Don't let this drag. You plan to sabotage me? Then go ahead. Oh, and if firing
Did they really have
rounds
to get
won't
that
work, then
translator's
assassinate.
voice?
I will be happy to die in your hands.
He accuses soldiers of siding with his staunchest critic, Antonio Trillanes. The senator accuses Duterte and his family of amassing illegal wealth, which is denied. Trillanes was also one of the proponents of a complaint in the International Criminal Court against Duterte's war on illegal drugs. Duterte ordered Trillanes' arrest, which the military did not carry out. Trillanes was a Navy officer, one of the many to mutiny when Gloria Arroyo was president. Despite his detention for 7 years, he campaigned and won a Senate seat. He was granted amnesty by former President Benigno Aquino 7 years ago. Duterte revoked the amnesty, saying it was void. But documents show the amnesty was legal and absolute. And because an amnesty is irrevocable, Trillanes says what Duterte has done is unprecedented and only done by a desperate leader.
They will probably question the psychological health of their commander-in-chief, because they didn't expect that from their commander-in-chief, who will actually incite sedition and rebellion against himself.
And it threatens to split the military institution that has gone through major reforms over the last 30 years. Critics say it is unheard of for a president to challenge his commanders to oust him.
Duterte's politics with the AFP is that of patron-client relationship.
Kind
he
of a bit of an
dispenses
idiot,
favors, he dispenses ranks,
Kind of?
people would think of
Yeah.
Duterte as illogical, prone to rant. But I look at this person as a calculating person, and he is not to be underestimated.
The Senate leadership has given Trillanes sanctuary, so he remains within the premises for now. Meanwhile, the military has made a commitment that it will only follow orders that are in line with the Constitution. Still, many here are worried. They say Duterte's relentless pursuit of Trillanes, no matter the costs, may further destabilize the country's already fragile democracy. Jamela Alindogan, Al Jazeera, Manila.
So that's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah. I mean,
that's like if Trump went after somebody that was pardoned.
Has he?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't remember a single time where he sent the FBI to go arrest somebody that had a pardon. I mean, imagine.
Now,
okay, imagine this. All right, Chuck Schumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comes out on the stage, says Donald Trump is amassing illegal wealth. We need to get rid of him. Donald Trump pulls a page out of Rodrigo Duterte's book, and he says, Mattis, get your boys. Sessions, get your guns. Let's go get these guys. And they both kind of look at him and they say, you're fucking stupid. That's kind of what just happened in the Philippines.
That scene you painted there was amazing. That's
I know, right?
Man.
And so imagine, after he does this, he looks to the camera and he says, oh, if they want to kill me, they can do it right now.
Honestly, if he were to say that, I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of people would be saying, oh my god, the absolute madman. But in a positive way. Yeah.
Could be. But, I mean,
if we're being honest there.
Oh, yeah, I know. But people say what they're going to say. I still think this whole situation is just I'm not in it. So I'm speaking as an outsider, and I think that the whole world is quite comical. But the fact that he tried to do something so blatantly illegal in his own country and expected everyone to just go along with it is just laughable. Just a shame. I kind of feel bad for the Philippines? Yeah. Kind of feel bad for the people in the Philippines.
Yep.
Just a little bit.
A whole lot.
So, if you guys noticed, we got a big fat picture of Putin on the thumbnail today.
Oh,
There's a good reason for that. And I don't know if you guys have heard, but Russia is doing its largest war games since the Cold War in Belarus.
I was thinking you were gonna pronounce it wrong.
Belarus.
Belarus.
Now, all this week in the vast expanse of Siberia, Russian military forces have been conducting the largest war games in a generation. As Nick Schifrin reports, the exercises are as much about projecting power as demonstrating it.
In Russia's Far East, the troops are on parade, and the tanks extend as far as the eye can see. Not since the Soviet era has the Russian military showed off this much weaponry and tried to convince the world not only the Russians are coming, but they've already arrived with sound and fury. Short-range ballistic missiles fired at a hypothetical enemy. An all-out assault from the ground and air, simulating conventional war. Soldiers rappelling from helicopters as if they were launching an invasion. The Russian Navy flooded the Bering Sea that separates Russia from
man, that's
Alaska.
A real Navy. Last time we looked at a Navy, it was just speedboats.
And ships launched cruise missiles at hypothetical enemy boats. All hailed as proof a military that 15 years ago was depleted and demoralized can now mobilize what the Russians claim is their largest exercise since the Cold War, said Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Our duty to the homeland is to be ready to defend the sovereignty, the security, and the national interests of our country.
They sound very impressive to a domestic audience because they make it seem like, well, Russia is a great power that's in many ways been restored in terms of military capability. And they also sound very impressive to foreign audiences, right?
Michael Kaufman is a senior research scientist at the Center for Naval Analyses. He says the exercise isn't only to improve Russian deployment and coordination, it's also about increasing what he calls coercive diplomacy against other countries.
If you want to push people around, leveraging the military power that you have, the threat of force. But that threat of force has to be seen, people have to believe it, it's got to be made credible. And of course, the bigger and more exaggerated it seems, potentially the better your course of diplomacy.
And the diplomacy of this exercise is all about China.
Oh
Those are
my
Chinese
God, look at the
troops
line.
and Chinese helicopters integrated into a simulated Russian attack. The two militaries have worked together before, but never this high profile.
But they look shitty.
And never before has a Chinese president participated.
Those Chinese
At a nearby economic forum, Xi Jinping and Putin showed off their relationship and cooking skills. They made Russian pancakes with a healthy dollop of caviar, washed down.
What? I want the
Xi
balloons.
rarely conducts public diplomacy, and watching themselves, the two are at times self-conscious. But at a moment when the U.S. is talking about great power competition, China tied itself to Russia.
We will continue to make joint efforts to consolidate our traditional friendship, enhance our comprehensive cooperation, and push the China-Russia relationship up to a new height.
The two are increasingly demonstrating something very important. They don't see each other as a threat, but they are responding to a shared threat that they perceive in the United States. And it's important to understand that alliances between classical powers, great powers, they're not made out of love, affection, or trust, or even mutual appearances making pancakes. They're made in response to a larger threat. And that larger threat is very clearly the United States.
The West considers Russia increasingly hostile. The 2014 annexation of Crimea, ongoing battles by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine, and the Russian military intervention in Syria that saved President Bashar al-Assad. In response, the U.S. has deployed more troops to Europe than at any time since the Cold War. Just this week, NATO jets practiced intercepting Russian jets. It's a sign that NATO is more united against Russia, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said today in Washington.
Because we see a more assertive Russia, investing in modern capabilities, that's the reason why NATO has implemented the biggest reinforcement to our collective defense.
Analysts believe Russia does not want confrontation with the West, but it wants the world to believe that it can exert force and frighten with a little help from their friends. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.
Pretty shocking, huh?
Well, they're just whipping their dick out, but here's the thing. Trump's dick is bigger, and everybody knows it.
Oh, yeah. I thought we might take a look at the Euro news because it's a bit more how do you say? It's every time we show one of their clips, it's super straightforward. We get some information and then we just move on to the next thing. So I figured since we've heard some commentary, we might just see a summary of what's actually going on out there. And I believe one of the things they're going to mention in this clip is that there's a little bit of fear that the Russians might not leave Belarus.
Russia has begun its biggest war games since the fall of the Soviet Union. 300,000 troops are involved in the joint China and Russia drills close to the Chinese border. Vostok 2018 comes at a time of heightened tension between the West and Russia, and NATO says it'll monitor the exercise closely, as will the United States. The full extent of what we see is that today our enemy is represented by concrete targets, which we've made and launched ourselves, targets that were created for the air defence system of all sounds, heights and speeds, and the most exclusive thing is that all of these targets are twice, even 3 times more effective in their characteristics than the ones that our enemy possibly has now. The exercise involves deploying additional forces to Russia's Far East and a naval build-up involving its northern and Pacific fleets. The location, 5,000 kilometres east of Moscow, means Japan, North and South Korea, as well as China and Mongolia, will keep an eye on what's going on. But the Ministry of Defence says the main aim is to check the military's readiness to move troops to large distances. Our reporter says the journalists who gather here from around the world are asking themselves what kind of scenario is Moscow using for these exercises. The military officials say this is a test of the country's defence capability. But many analysts say that this training is happening at a World War scale.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that feeling too, man.
Yeah. It's absolutely happening at a World War scale. Absolutely, 100%. I've never in my entire life seen a mobilization like that, except for when we went to Iraq the first and the second time.
Russia and China deciding to show everything off.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of shit.
Looks like they gotta pull out those rods of God, man.
Oh my God, tungsten telephone poles.
Tungsten bodies glowing mind.
Oh, all right. So we're still talking about Russia, but we're switching gears away from the military exercises. Do you guys remember we reported on the sonic attacks that have been happening at American embassies?
Wait, do you mean the attacks at American embassies by fans of the franchise Sonic the Hedgehog, or do you mean...
No. Chris Chan can't afford to travel.
Oh, right,
so,
right.
Yeah, he's stuck at home in his mother's basement. What I intended to imply there was that the sonic attacks that our ambassadors and our diplomats have been facing in places like Cuba and China have been attributed by our illustrious and infallible intelligence agencies. And you want to take one swing, one crack at who they say it is? Russia! Yes.
I like that unintentional little echo.
A new intelligence report says Russia is behind sonic attacks that led to brain injuries of U.S. embassy personnel in both Cuba and China. U.S. officials using communication intercepts, signals intelligence, and spy talk to find evidence of Russian involvement. They declined to give any more specifics because they're, are you ready for this, the usual claptrap? Because their investigation is ongoing. National security is at risk, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. One question the report doesn't answer: why haven't we gone after Cuba and China for attacking our personnel in those embassies? They guarantee our diplomats' security while we operate within their borders. But in this case, considerable harm and a very foul-smelling allegation. Joining me now, Sebastian Gorka, Fox Business national security analyst, former strategist to the president, author of the new book coming out.
Doesn't he normally have glasses on?
Why We Fight, Recovering America's Will to Win, available for pre-order now, and we urge you to do so. Good to have you with us, Seb. Let's start with this preposterous story that the Russians are behind two sonic attacks, one in Beijing, one in Havana, against U.S. embassy personnel. This strains credulity.
I'm not sure it does, Lou, because we know that there is open source reporting, unclassified reporting of the Russians doing exactly this in the Crimean theater of operations. So it wasn't targeting human beings, but they used incredibly high levels of microwaves to literally fry Ukrainian UAVs out of the sky. And remember, they've used Cuba as their test bed before. Let's not forget the Cuban Missile Crisis turned that island basically into a giant lily pad for Russian tactical nukes. So somebody did something. It may
so stipulated,
be
but Dr. Gorka, let's look at the facts. The facts are these: we've had a dozen of our personnel injured, and seriously, some of them very seriously. We have not seen the United States respond. And one of these little silly statements that we think that the Russians are behind it, this is asinine. This isn't intelligence. This is stupidity. And the United States government is supposed to act with a higher degree of, if I may use the word, intelligence than this. How is it that the Russians were able to carry out these attacks in Beijing? First question. Second question, why hasn't there been a response by the United States government in retaliation? because this is not the way forward for a rational superpower to behave.
Well, to the first part, how is it possible that it occurred in these countries? We know when it comes to...
How is it that Russia could carry out this attack in Beijing specifically?
Well, with the
why would we only be guessing at this? And secondly, why would we not have our own defenses against such an attack?
Well, number one, this is a brand new form of technology. So using either sound waves or microwaves against human targets to create a physiological damage, that's a new kind of irregular warfare. Why is it so hard to determine who did it? Because it's not a bullet, it's not a bomb. It has really very little fingerprints on it. But I think that our people will work out who's behind it. As to the response,
has
well,
very little
issue. A year, man. None. I mean, this is not something for rationalization. We have an intelligence community that couldn't even stop meddling in our elections in 2016. Now we find out they don't have a clue about how to determine who is carrying out these microwave attacks, if indeed that's what it was.
Damn, Lou
that's a high level of supposition, it seems to me. Still,
normally Seb Gorka is one of their guys,
and there are other explanations as well, and other parties that could very well be the actors here. I'm just getting a little tired of an intelligence community, frankly, Dr. Gorka. It doesn't seem to have intelligence. And you know, when they carry that on their shoulders as a trade style, I'd like to see them do a little better, wouldn't you?
I would, but there's a big problem with that, Lou. A guy called John Brennan ran the CIA, and he turned it into his little fiefdom. He created new centers in which analysts became quasi-operatives. He almost destroyed the culture of the CIA single-handedly as some kind of revenge for failing at the farm. He failed out of the school at the CIA to become a case officer. So, Lou, damage has been done, and it's not going to be fixed overnight.
We can't be in the business of rationalizing failure 2 years into this administration. It is time now for somebody to take charge of the dadgum agencies. And by the way, you know, we're talking about the DNI, the head of the CIA. This is all great sport. It's politics. It's nonsense. This is a president who pledged smart government, and we've got really dumb government working in our intelligence community right now, if this is the best they can proffer. And I'm sure you agree.
Lou, given the power that we have otherwise economically and politically, I have to agree. The intelligence community doesn't cut the mustard when it comes to how effective it should be. You won't hear me disagree with you on that, Lou.
Okay, then we're going to continue to recommend your book. Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou.
That's pretty funny. I enjoyed that. Kind of silly, but pretty funny, man.
That was pretty good.
Okay, so switching gears yet again, trying to get away from Russia. Do you guys remember that fateful day when Donald Trump announced that he was going to form a new branch of the military, the Space Force?
Space Force!
Well, everyone came out and kind of shit on him for it. And there was a lot of memes thrown around. There's jokes every day on Twitter about it. Well, someone doesn't think it's that silly of an idea. And he's kind of well respected across the entire political spectrum.
I think I've seen this one.
I have no idea what's going on, but this sounds intriguing. Let's go in.
Tell us, Black Science Man. Tell us about the Space Force.
Oh wait,
I knew it.
The opening for this clip is so cringy.
Space Force have been met with skepticism across the country. But could it actually be necessary? According to the Pentagon, a Space Force could advance technology and America's scientific knowledge. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson sat down with CBS this morning to discuss the potential of the 6th military branch.
I don't have a horse in that race. I've spoken with Air Force generals who are happy retaining their control over the space defense. The Air Force has U.S. Space Command, and they've been in space ever since we've had access to space. So that's not a new understanding of how things are working. If you have a Space Force, you would take all of those activities and put them under one umbrella. And if you did that, I'd want to throw in a couple of extra things like asteroid defense. If you're going to go there, let's do it, you know?
You mean defend us against asteroids coming to get us?
Yes, yes.
You know, how big a threat is that, by the way, while we're quickly in that neighborhood?
Well, so one could come and then render us extinct.
Extinction
so I would count that
level
as a big threat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, then I won't order out for breakfast.
That counts.
But the concern, of course, people have with this is the militarization of space crowds out or complicates the scientific exploration.
So consider first that ever since anybody's had access to space, we've been putting spy satellites in space. And so the militarization is not simply do you have weapons, but are there activities that relate to the conduct of war? And yes, we've had that since the beginning. That is not a new understanding or a new idea. And the second Gulf War, 2003, was enabled by space assets.
And the race to get the atom bomb was quickened all kinds of discoveries in science.
Well, that's always been the case, this relationship between progress in science and the need and the desire of the warfighter to have the latest, best weaponry. Yep. And in many of the branches of science, it's pretty obvious what those connections have been. The physicists made the bomb, the chemists made napalm, and you go far enough back, they made the mustard gas in World War I. A rogue state might bring on a biologist to weaponize anthrax. My field, however, is not as obviously connected if you just pause and think about it. Because what do? We sit on a mountaintop and wait for a photon of light to come to us. And then we carry our detector to the coffee lounge and talk about it. But if you really think about it, you realize that navigation around the world, enabled by our understanding of the sky, has been a handmaiden to empire building ever since there have been empires.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
Man, he's really excited here.
He
is. He's really excited.
You tell a very touching story in the book about how it hit you very hard.
He's ready for Star Trek.
When you realize the connection between what you do and the weapons of war. I hadn't thought of it this way, the way you described it.
Well, I've always known there's some connection.
Yeah.
It was just odd. I was at a conference, a space conference, when the second Gulf War was ramping up big time. And at that space conference were all of these contractors that make the missiles, the weapons, the bombs. And they, of course, broke into many of the sessions to bring the live coverage, you know, the live TV coverage. And every time it was announced that, oh, this was a Lockheed Martin missile or Boeing missile or General Dynamics, that group would like applause and cheer. It was like, they're like
people are
dying in this. And I got very upset.
So how do you reconcile it?
Well, good question. I'm sitting there, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. It's not, you know, they're executing the needs of the military, and the military is in an operation sanctioned by elected officials, and we, the electorate, elect them into place. So I had to like redirect this understanding of the causes and effects of this violence and say, no, it's us. It is the electorate. And then I realized, I was shaped during the Vietnam War. I was an observer of the 60s, not a participant. I'm not that old. But I was, you know, back then, war was bad, not just Vietnam War. Remember that song, War? What is it good for? Absolutely. That line wasn't Vietnam War. What is it good for? Absolutely. It was just war. And so then I realized, why do you have all these statues with military folks posing proud? Other wars, people didn't feel that way. No one is saying we shouldn't have fought the Second World War. Of course we did. And so if you have access to weaponry that can achieve a geopolitical goal that is noble, then I'm not there to stand in judgment of it.
We've been talking about offensive weapons.
Smart.
But a lot of the space and military technology, at least for the U.S., is for defensive purposes as well.
I mean, ideally, you'd want to have such a defense that it renders the offense of your opponent completely mute and ineffective. I think that's
perhaps intercepting an ICBM.
Yeah, you want to knock that out of the sky.
Yeah.
Let me just say that space assets, you know, what do you want your military to do? To protect your borders in the classical sense, no invaders, but also you want them to protect your assets. And our space assets are not just the value of the satellites that were constructed, it's the value of the commerce that they enable. GPS satellites. We're a military construct.
Yes.
We want to know where our troop movement is and where and why and what the targets are. And we tapped into that. Civilians.
And now we use them to find the quickest way home.
Yeah, to find where's grandma's house? Where's the UPS truck?
Where can I find sex?
Yeah, if you're on Tinder.
You say that in the book.
But we don't know anything about that.
You say that in the book. Yeah, you say that in the book.
It is in the book.
Yeah.
You can find grandma's house and sex using high space technology, and whole industries only exist because of it, such as Uber. Wow. So this relationship is real. Yeah. It is fundamental to who and what we have become.
So the U.S. Coast Guard, we're at.
Oh, kill it.
Got that one. Sorry.
I didn't expect that segment out of Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've always thought of him as kind of a bit of a lefty. I did not expect him to be a proponent of the military in space. Did you?
No, not at all, but maybe he knows something that we don't.
I think that he understands that. Well, I mean, he kind of laid it out, and it shocked me to hear that, because to be honest, I must have missed that part of the clip when I watched it before. But when he sat there and he talked about why we fight wars and why wars are not a bad thing necessarily, that it kind of makes you think a little bit differently, right? And it makes you wonder why you can't get more people to think like that.
Yeah.
Just a thought. I thought it was a neat clip that I felt like our audience deserved to see this week. So I thought we would take a moment to touch on the natural disaster that's happening in Washington, in the United States. Several states on the East Coast were hit with Hurricane Florence, which got downgraded to a tropical storm, and we've seen a lot of CNN style fake news reporting. Like there's that picture going around of Anderson Cooper with water up to his waist because he's standing in a ditch. There's a few videos.
Wait, wasn't that photoshopped?
I don't know if that was photoshopped. From what I saw, that may have been real, just because his shirt was wet. But the one that I saw that was really silly was the one where the guy, he's like miming that he's struggling against the wind, and then there's people standing in the background, and he's just like chilling. So it is what it is. The hurricane was really bad, though. So I don't want people to think that, it was horrifyingly bad, or that it was, not bad at all. It's pretty bad. There's a lot of places out there with 3 feet of water, just hoping they can get by. So I thought I would grab this clip and show you guys what's going on with the Coast Guard, how they're helping out.
So the U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral Keith Smith is with us. He's headed to North Carolina, and boy, do they need him and the services there. The Coast Guard has already been involved in a number of rescue operations, including one ongoing in New Bern, North Carolina. Commander, thank you for joining us.
Neil, thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate the time.
So what are you hearing from your men and women on the scene?
Well, first of all, this is a Coast Guard response in conjunction, and we're working closely with our partners from the state and the federal government as we do this. This is not just Coast Guard. This is working together with our other agencies, and the Coast Guard is ready, and we have had responses out and resources out, and we're ready to respond. We are encountering some challenges. This storm has created some significant challenges as it moves slowly across the state of North Carolina. And impact on our ability to get our helicopters on scene. So we did try to launch a helicopter into New Bern. We had some folks that were in trouble and on a rooftop, and so we tried to launch, and they got into the weather there and had to land just because the weather and the winds were too significant and surpassed our capabilities of that aircraft. So this is a little bit different than some of the storms we've dealt with in the past.
So, Admiral, in that case, you do a lot of the rooftop rescues. We've seen that heroically in Coast Guard rescues after prior disasters, hurricanes, you name it. What do you tell people who are stuck? And a lot of them seek out, shelter out of harm's way or away from the water, so they go to a roof. What do you tell them?
Well, we tell them, first of all, if you get in trouble, call 911 and try to so we can know that you're in trouble. So use 911 to call for that. We ask that you don't go into attics and enclosed spaces, because if you're in a closed space, we can't rescue you. So if you have to get out on the rooftop where we can see you. But try to call 911. Let the local emergency responders know that you're in trouble, and then that information gets funneled through the Coast Guard or through the most appropriate emergency response capability that can come and rescue you.
Admiral, you're always in a tough position because some people were advised to leave, they didn't, and now you and your men and women are, risking their own lives to get them. I can understand some of the trepidation on the part of people who don't want to leave their homes and all. So any advice, though, that you have for those who are more inland, who are preparing for these floods and also very much in harm's way?
Right, it's hard right now because we just don't know. I mean, if they're at their homes right now, I don't know if their situation allows them to evacuate. I guess the best advice right now is to listen to your local authorities and take advice of what they're offering you right now. If they do get in trouble, call 911 and take safe haven as best you can. But once again, don't go into a location where that you can't get rescued, like an attic or something. Our number one priority is save of life, to save people and prevent first responders from getting into a tough spot right now. So the best advice we can give them is heed the advice of the local responders.
Animal,
and by the way, that was his phone, not our phone.
And all your guys are doing. As the Admiral's speaking, I just want to bring you up to date on some of the latest figures we're getting from military personnel in the area. Just on the National Guard front alone, there are 7,000 National Guards and active duty personnel assigned to the area.
Big storm.
Defense Secretary Jim Mattis has already activated what they call dual status commanders in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, so they are pre-authorized to move and move quickly at a moment's notice. So they are at the ready, and so are we.
So, yeah, pretty big storm. They're doing some pretty good job of recovering people. We got a little bit of a word from the Coast Guard there. I thought that would be our best coverage. I honestly contemplated whether or not to include the other clip that's going around. I don't know if you've done a Google search on Hurricane Florence.
Nope. I was tracking the tropical depression.
What about you, Political? Did you do a Google search on Hurricane Florence? Nope. Oh, he died.
Oh.
Anyway, when I looked it up and I was going through the videos, there's this thumbnail that goes around. And there's this black dude he's got kind of a beard, and he's wearing shorts and he's got a Helly Hansen red and black jacket on. And it's like one of the most depressing pictures in the world, but it's actually pretty cute because he's got this fucking kitten that's just drowned in his jacket hood. It's like trying to figure out where to be, and it's like hiding in it, like in his hood. It's like one of the cutest, like most heartbreaking things of all time. So I really wrestled with whether or not to include that clip. But if you folks want to see it, I recommend watching it. It's a great clip. It's great. It's good news. I don't have to tell you. Like it's good video.
Yeah, the only stuff I saw was a bunch of looters, man.
Oh, no. If you look up Hurricane Florence on YouTube, one of the first thumbnails is this black dude with a kitten in his hood. It's great.
Nice.
Okay, so we're switching gears a little bit more. We don't have a whole lot of political coverage this week. I kind of warned you guys about that. So we're kind of getting into our high note a little bit here. It's half high note, half related to the Trump political debacle that's going on. Michael Avenatti decided to make an appearance on the Tucker Carlson show, and they have been struggling to get him in. You guys know that they've been trying to get him in for a long time, right?
Yep.
So he finally agreed to come on, and I'm just going to say this outright. I love Tucker. He's great. But I don't think they were completely honest with Mr. Avenatti about how they were going to do the interview. That being said, Michael Avenatti is a buffoon and shows as much in this interview. So let's go ahead and see the future presidential candidate.
On to the buffoonery.
You may recognize this man. He's a lawyer. He represents the porn actress Stormy Daniels in her lawsuits against the president and Michael Cohen. But in the last 6 months, he has become famous in his own right. He's now one of the most consistent fixtures on cable news in this country. He's appeared on CNN and MSNBC literally hundreds of times, but he's moving beyond being a mere television celebrity. He's now talking about running for office for president. He's released his positions on major issues. He's traveled to Iowa, New Hampshire, and Michigan, and Ohio.
All porn will
he
be
seems
free.
serious about it. We've invited him on the show many times to talk about his plans, but he's always declined until tonight. He's now agreed to appear on our set, provided we give him time to state his case, and we're, of course, happy to do that. In the past, he's also demanded that we stop referring to him by a certain unflattering nickname. And we haven't agreed to that demand, but tonight is a gesture of goodwill. We will not use it.
We haven't agreed to that.
We're always grateful
demand.
when guests are brave enough to show up in person, including in this case, and he joins us now. Thanks a lot for coming on. So, I mean, we could sit and hurl insults at each other for the segment. Already done that. I've certainly insulted you. You've insulted me.
Keep an eye on the lower
But you
third.
seem smart. So let me take you seriously as someone who wants to be involved in the public conversation and ask you about things that you have said on questions of policy. So this is you at a rally in July. I think it was the day after the president spoke with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. And you were addressing a rally. And here's what you said. Watch.
What Vladimir Putin and Russia did to this country in connection with the 2016 election is no different than if they had placed 100,000 troops on our border. This was an invasion. It was an electronic invasion. It used hackers and tweeters to elect this president.
So if Russia had 100,000 troops on our border, I mean, that would be an active or a profound provocation. What would be the rational response to that if you really felt the threat was that profound? If you were president, how would you respond to that?
Well, Tucker, I understood that I was coming on your show tonight to talk about the case involving my client.
Well, I didn't tell you that, and I'm happy to talk about the case. But I just played you a clip. I just asked you to stop.
I'm not ready to talk about my campaign.
Because one of the conditions of me coming on tonight was that you were not going to do what you do routinely to guests, which is talk over them and interrupt them. So just let me finish with my answer. Okay, let me finish with my answer.
I said I'd give you a fair interview. I actually don't have any interest in squabbling with you at all or name calling. I've done a lot of that to you, and you've done it to me.
No, but not to my face.
I could, but what's the point? I want to take you seriously. I'm serious.
Okay.
So I just played a clip of what you said at a rally. You're traveling to states because you want to influence policy direction. Correct. I don't think it's unfair to ask you about something that you said.
What's the question?
And the question, let me restate it, is you said that Russia has done something that is equivalent to putting 100,000 troops on our border. That's an act of war.
Correct.
And I wonder two things. One, what you would do as president if that happened under your watch. And two, what do you think Russia thinks watching public figures like you say that we're at war with Russia? What effect do you think that has?
Well, first of all, there's no question that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in a very serious way. The only question is, what was the involvement in Donald Trump or by Donald Trump and his cronies in the process? Okay. And that's what Bob Mueller's in the process of getting to the bottom of.
But how should we as a country respond?
There you go, interrupted me again. Okay. So how should we respond?
Yes, I asked you 3 times.
We should respond with the absolute force of the law. We should be doing everything in our power to bring those individuals to justice, those individuals that are also in Russia. And let me tell you what we should not be doing. We should not be standing shoulder to shoulder with Vladimir Putin and choosing Russia over the hardworking men and women of the intelligence community that risk their lives for this country.
So
the president has sold out the United States
so the
for the benefit of
administration
Putin.
announced today a new round of even tougher sanctions against Russia. Do you support that?
I think it's a start, but I don't think it's
what would be the end?
I don't think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think the president has shown any leadership relating
sanctions
to Vladimir,
are not a step in the right direction.
No, I said it's a step, but it's not enough. Okay. I believe that President Trump should demand the extradition of each and every individual in Russia that Bob Mueller and others believe were responsible for the election meddling in 2016.
Okay, so
I think
a number of people have been
we need to
start. Okay, this is
we need to skip.
I mean, if you really believe that's the same as 100,000, what I'm saying is you're using reckless rhetoric on a subject you don't really understand that increases the temperature between the United States and a nuclear-armed adversary. Is that a responsible thing to do?
I think under the circumstances, I stand by my words, and I think for you to
let Stormy
troops on the border, I think for you to lecture me about reckless rhetoric is rather ironic, Tucker, in light of some of the reckless rhetoric that you engage in each and every day on this show.
Reckless rhetoric. Okay. So you've said that you are a civil libertarian, in effect. You're a libertarian on sex questions. And that's fine with me. Does it bother you that the Obama administration authorized spying on American citizens connected to a rival presidential campaign?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's been established that that occurred. Number one.
Carter Page was spied on?
I don't believe that that's been established, number one, that in fact President Obama authorized
his administration.
Are you going to interrupt me for the entire segment?
I'm
or just
clarifying because I don't think you understand the question.
No, I
do. The Obama administration authorized spying on an American citizen connected to the Trump campaign. Does that bother you at all?
First of all, I don't think that's been established. If it was established, of course it would bother me. Are we going to get to the facts of my client's case?
Yeah,
Are we
let me ask you one last real adult question first, because you're traveling around the country as a commentator on politics, and I'm interested to know what you think. I don't think that's illegitimate. So it has not been established that Carter Page was spied on? Is that what you're saying?
How many times are you going to ask me the same question? I've already stated that in my view, I don't believe that President Obama has been shown to have authorized the spying, quote unquote,
the Obama administration. Why dodge the question? Look, you traveled here with policy advisors who've worked on other campaigns to the show tonight.
I have no idea.
I think you'd be ready for a simple question.
I didn't travel here with policy advisors. Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question.
No, I don't think. Why don't you get a TV show and then you can ask me a question? I've asked you a simple question and you're not answering.
Why is it that you don't call Donald Trump the creepy porn president? He's the one that had sex with a 4-month-old son at home with my client without a condom.
Okay, so
but you don't want to acknowledge that.
Hold on.
You don't want to acknowledge
that.
Acknowledge it.
Okay.
Do you believe that he had sex with my client?
I've said that on the air multiple times. So let me ask you a question.
People, and you're okay with that. You think it's okay if the president lies to the American people?
Settle down. Let me finish my question to you. What is the crime, the harm, the injury to your client by Donald Trump? As far as I understand, this was a consensual sexual relationship, and yes, I believe it occurred. I don't know that, but it seems like it did. I'm willing to believe that it did.
God, this
but it seemed consensual, and then she was paid at the end of it, and yet you. And by the way, I'm not attacking Stormy Daniels. I feel sorry for her. I feel she's being exploited.
You've attacked her for 6 months.
I feel that you and others are exploiting her. So I feel bad for her. But I'm wondering what the injury is.
I think you demean her repeatedly, and I think you're a hypocrite.
So let me ask you what the injury. You want to talk about the case? I'm asking you the core question in the case. What is the injury to Stormy Daniels?
The injury is that the agreement that was entered into was not adhered to by Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. They did not fulfill their end of the bargain. Now, do you want to talk about the injury to the American people, the lies and the
lying? So you believe no, but you just went off on this moral lecture about how it was wrong for the president to have an adulterous affair, and I would agree with that. But you're very outraged. So yes, you said it's an injury against the American people that he had sex with someone, not his wife, when his wife was pregnant.
You didn't let me finish. The injury is that he and Michael Cohen and others lied to the American people and covered up the $130,000 payment and violated campaign finance law. That's why Michael Cohen, I'm not done. That's why Michael Cohen just pled guilty.
Let me ask you a question.
That's why Michael Cohen just pled guilty.
I understand them. I've been following the news as well.
Okay.
Did Donald Trump have a moral obligation to tell the American people that he had a sexual relationship with Stormy Daniels?
I don't care whether he had a moral obligation.
Then why is it a crime that he didn't?
No, what he had an obligation to do was not cover it up and lie about it and commit campaign finance violations as his right hand. Michael Cohen just pled guilty to the felony. Tucker, what are you talking about?
To campaign finance violations?
Yes, associated with Miss McDougal. And I thought you were following the news.
So let me
ask you. Let
me ask you. I'm a little confused. So you're the protector of Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels is right now working in strip clubs in little towns on stage. People are throwing things at her. You're wearing a $1,000 suit. Why are you not paying her? You've profited from Stormy Daniels. You've done tens of millions of dollars worth of free media on the basis of your relationship with her, and she's working in strip clubs. You're exploiting her, and you know that. Why aren't you paying her some of what you're making?
Sir, this is absurd.
It's not absurd. Those are the facts.
No, you don't know the facts, as evidenced by the fact that
you don't even know. Is she working in strip clubs?
Are you going to continue to interrupt me, or are you going to let me finish?
I do know the facts, actually.
No, you don't, because you just demonstrated your ignorance, because you didn't even know Michael Cohen pled to 2 felonies associated with the campaign finance violations.
I don't believe that what Cohen did, and I'm not defending Cohen, I never have, was a campaign finance violation. I think it's absurd.
I think it's absurd. He pled guilty to 2 2 felonies.
Okay, so everyone who pleads, look, this is a stupid, we have an honest disagreement. I don't think it was a campaign finance violation. Stormy Daniels was to perform in Richmond in a depressing strip club. This hero that you say you're protecting, you're her protector. Why is she working in seedy strip clubs while you're on television wearing expensive suits? Why are you not exploiting her? Why is she doing that?
Because she wants to, Tucker. And
she wants to.
This is America. This is America. And guess what? If a woman wants to perform in a strip club, she does so.
But
even
you're getting rich.
Even though people, I'm not getting rich. Even though people like you, demean her.
I'm not demeaning her. You're the one who's profiting.
You're the one that refers to her consistently as a porn star,
and
as to me as a creepy porn lawyer. And meanwhile, you give the president. Meanwhile, you give the president a pass who had unprotected sex with the porn star with a 4-month-old son at home.
Well, you are a moralizer for a guy who does what you do.
No,
that's got to be a talking.
You are a little moralizer. You're like, we're in church now with a 4-month-old son. Okay, I'm officially shocked by Donald Trump's behavior. I had no idea. It blew my mind. But answer my question. Why are you rich and your client is working in seedy strip clubs?
Sir, do you have any idea how much money I've earned from
You're on every cable show. You're running for president now.
You have no idea.
Well, I know that you haven't paid your taxes because you've got over $1 million worth of...
ridiculous. You don't even know your facts.
It's not true.
You don't even know your
$1 million
your facts, Tucker.
Look, I'm just saying, why is she still...
How do you have a show and you're this ignorant? How is that
Here's what I know for a fact is that your client is not thriving. And for you to look at me in the eye and say she wants to perform in strip clubs with people throwing stuff at her is insulting to her. People don't do that unless they have no choice, or she just likes it. Is that what you're saying?
Tucker, now you're the defender of my client. You don't know anything about
You
don't know anything about my client. Explain my
client. I know that she's working in a strip club in Richmond.
You gotta let me finish. Can I finish?
Please do.
All right.
We know
I've
that she
done
might
a
have a cover-up
job
tattoo
for my client, and she'll be the first one to tell you that. And had you listened to any of her interviews or seen any of her comments, you would know exactly what she thinks of me. I'm not done. I am not exploiting my client. I'm representing my client to the absolute.
So when she wants to get your legal advice, does she have to pretend to be a booker from CNN to get through to you?
That's disgusting. Why don't you show some
disgusting
respect?
is
Why don't you show some respect to my client
not.
And me and stop calling us a porn star and a creepy porn lawyer? If you've got that big a problem with porn, do you have that big a problem with porn?
I'm not making fun of.
When's the last time?
Here we go.
When's the last time you saw
Here we go.
porn?
Oh, you busted me. Actually, maybe humiliation porn. That's why I watch you on CNN.
No, but when's the last time you viewed porn?
You're a little creepier even than I realized.
Do you have a problem with porn?
You're dodging the question that I have asked you
Let me ask
repeatedly.
you a question. Do you believe that people that view porn should watch your show?
I'm not even sure what that question means, but I will say this, sincerely, that I have never attacked Stormy Daniels.
Yes, you have, repeatedly.
I think you are exploiting her, as I've said 5 times, and you haven't answered the question, which is, why is it that her life has stalled, and your life you're planning a new career as a politician, and like so many lawyers, you were taking advantage of her. And you pose as a feminist hero because you are shameless, and the other channels let you get away with it.
Whoa.
But you're an exploiter of a woman, and you should be ashamed of it.
And you're
that is my.
No, are you gonna let me finish? Let me respond?
We're out of time.
You're just gonna say
more time.
Hypocrite.
More time than I promised
you. You don't know what you're talking
about. But it is nice to see you.
Yet again.
You just won't stop talking.
Seen and unseen.
Oh boy.
I really thought you guys would enjoy that. I know it was a long clip. I'm sorry that you had to sit through 13 minutes of that shit show, but god damn, it was worth it.
Yeah, that shit was hilarious.
Oh man, they just tore Avenatti down, man. That was just. Ooh.
That guy that runs that lower third, I want to send him a gift basket. Oh my god, I haven't seen trolling like that in ages. So, I know I've told you guys before, one of my favorite comedians is Norm Macdonald. I love that man.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
That voice.
Just one of the most hilarious people in the world. And if you guys are familiar with Norm Macdonald, he is not politically correct. And I wouldn't call him remotely liberal either. So he's getting a little bit of a blacklist right now.
Let's check him out on the blacklist.
It's time for our Seen and Unseen segment, where we explore some of the big cultural stories of the day. Comedian Norm Macdonald has had a Tonight Show appearance next after some controversial remarks on the Me Too movement. But that's far from the whole story. Joining us now with more is Raymond Arroyo, Fox News contributor, New York Times bestselling author of the Will Wilder series. Raymond, I know how the Fallon show canceled Norm Macdonald, though know why.
Well, NBC says they did it out of sensitivity to the audience. Norm Macdonald did an interview about this new Netflix talk show he's doing. David Letterman is producing. This is hardly a conservative talk show at all. Yeah. However,
you
he's
should
promoting it,
pause
and
this for a
he
second.
made comments about the...
So, Netflix censored his show.
How so?
They put beeps in a show that's rated MA. Yeah. So just stuff like that is happening to Norm Macdonald all over the place. Now the guy's fine. He's got his own shows. His podcast does fine. He gets people in, and he's not bankrupt or anything. But he's taking a few hits. So let's go ahead and watch the rest of this and see what he said about Me Too, because it should be pretty hilarious.
Me Too movement and his friend Roseanne and Louis C.K. And here's what he said. He said, I'm happy the Me Too movement has slowed down a bit. It used to be 100 women can't be lying. Then it became one woman can't lie. And that became, I believe all women. And then you're like, what? Like that Chris Hardwick guy, I really thought got the blunt end of the stick there. He went on to say his friends, unlike the victims, his friends, the comedians, suffered more than the victims did. That he had to apologize
Not a good
for.
comment.
That was over the line. However, there might be another reason that Fallon and The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon went to Norm Macdonald and said, my producers are in the other room crying, so you can't come on the show. He said something about his talk show as opposed to the ones that are already on the air. This is what he said. This might explain his cancellation as well. He said, ever since Jon Stewart, late-night hosts have been forced to become political pundits, even down to Jimmy Fallon. And he is derided for his treatment of Donald Trump, and then to be maligned for, quote, unquote, humanizing Trump. Funny, I thought he was human. If you have a nominee for president on your show and he's your guest, then he is your guest.
Oh, Fallon had to apologize for having Trump on, basically, right?
Right. Remember, he messed up his hair. They say he humanized him. But when we reach a point where saying that a president is human, and that's controversial, we've really reached a low point. Now, whether you're watching this Norm Macdonald show or not, Laura, there's a new series on Instagram TV. I know you
don't even know what that is.
Instagram is their new TV service. It's called Here's the Deal. And it's a 10-episode, issues-driven show designed to spur young Americans to vote in the midterms. Now, who would you think would host such a show, Laura?
They asked me. I said, no, I'm already busy on.
Well, they found the perfect host to attract those young voters, Vice President Joe Biden.
Oh, no.
Folks, with less than 100 days until the most consequential election of our lifetime, we've got to keep our eye on the ball. That's why I'm partnering with Attention on IGTV to break down the issues we all should be voting on this fall. Not complicated policy wonk language or confusing acronyms, just facts, at least as I see them.
I think the upper palate is slipping.
Did he say acronym?
Well, how is this going to attract young voters? But I feel like he's about to sell me a reverse mortgage when Joe.
He's not going to be. He's not going to be talking.
Folks.
He's not going to be. Yeah, he's not going to be talking about democratic dating. He's going to be talking about carbon dating.
Well,
I need my money and I want it now.
But anyway, he went on to talk about one of your favorite issues that'll really get the young people out in the polls: immigration.
Oh.
Oh no.
For centuries, our tradition of welcoming immigrants from around the world has given us tremendous advantage. We've gotten the best of every nation. We do need to control our border. Every country needs to control their border. But that does not require ripping infants and children from the arms of their parents. This administration has to stop using immigration as a political tool to divide us into us and them.
Well, Laura, if you're going to do political punditry on Instagram TV, where's the Newt Gingrich channel, the Dick Cheney channel? Have balance.
Oh, it's all left-wing.
It looks unfair.
These things are all left-wing.
Well,
they always have been. It's a social media has been dominated by the left.
Well,
the Dick Cheney channel, that's just as bad as the Joe Biden channel.
Okay.
That's going to be
very
fun.
quickly. Spreading of disease, Laura, in your public bathroom. A new study. You know those jet spray?
I don't like those jet sprays.
It's kind of a
let's go ahead and kill these guys.
They did a study. The Journal of Hospital.
Oh, that kind of morphed a little bit. But I do love me some Norm Macdonald. I might go watch some of his stand-up when we get out of here. Well, that's pretty much the end of the show. God, I still can't get over that lower third from the Tucker piece, though. That was
amazing.
Hilarious.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that ever.
Right.
Whoever produces that show, I wish I could shake that guy's hand.
They literally called him the creepy porn lawyer as the guy on the show.
He's like, you guys called me creepy porn lawyer, and then 5 seconds later, the lower third changes.
And it just keeps going and going and going.
Oh, man. All right, well, I think that's it for our show this week. Bit of point of order. I would say that I think we're still going to be ongoing with Sunday shows for a little bit. Political was telling me he might be busy next Friday.
All right, well, I mean, this has been working out for me so far, I would say, so that's cool. That works here.
Well, yeah, I start a new shift in October, so we can go back to Fridays then, or whatever we figured out.
We'll figure it out as we go on. We'll take it week by week, and we'll keep our audience up to date.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, unless we have something else to mention. Oh, we do have something else to mention.
We do?
Yes, we do. Our Discord server took a hit. So probably nobody that's watching will ask questions about it, but our Discord server took a hit. Got banned by Discord for some other reason. I'm not entirely sure why they thought it was necessarily due. So we're going to continue having a Discord server. Keep an eye on irc.qclearancearchive.net and keep an eye on my Twitter account, Bosses and Politicals.
Mm-hmm.
We will be putting out announcements if anything like that happens where we lose a server. But the link in our overlay should be current. Is that right?
No, actually, that needs to be updated.
Oh, it's the old one.
Yeah, that's the old one. That'll need to be updated.
The link. Okay, so the link in our overlay is old. We do have updated link. I'll put one out on my Twitter probably after this. We're going to be updating the one on the website if it hasn't been already. I'm going to get in touch with I Am Because We Are and see if he can get on that. Going forward, however, we will be basically hopping servers. So if the server goes down, I've found a tool that allows me to clone the server. So we're going to just go ahead and keep making new ones. They keep shutting us down. We're just going to keep going. So I've got plans in order, or rather plans set up so that we can just keep on going as long as we need to. So as long as you guys are willing to do a little bit of legwork by clicking a new invite link, we should be good. I think that's about it. Expect us to move to a new server, though, within the next week or two. We are on a server currently that has no owner because Because We Are got banned. So we'll change that in the coming weeks.
Yep, he'll be coming out of that soon. But rather than, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank y'all for tuning in, joining us for episode 16 of the Need to Know podcast.
The water sucks.
Oh, come on, Political. We haven't even gotten to that point yet. Well, we're almost there.
Whatever, you guys keep preemptively striking. I had to go first.
Okay, you got it this time, but I'm gonna get you next week, buddy. I'm gonna get you. You're gonna see it, and it's gonna happen. All right. We'll see y'all next week, everybody. Next Sunday. Be clear, be cool, chill out, spend time with your family, and have an awesome week. And, of course, buy water.